Hey YouTube, this is Firewizard23. I'm here. Here's another one of my book reviews of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. Every single one of you is going, what the fuck? I know that. Every viewer is going, what the fuck right now. Let's put a couple disclaimers out there. The big reason I went ahead to read Twilight is I wanted to know what all the fuss was about. I wanted to see it clearly and truthfully without any kind of misconceptions of it. I have not seen any of the films. This is my first time actually reading the book. I have seen, of course, the pages and all these videos. I've heard of these videos and people saying the criticisms and all this, like, it's terrible, this is awful, this is bad for girls and the abusive relationships, and I've heard all that stuff. I wanted to read it to see what it actually was and what it wasn't, and give it an actual flat opinion. I understand, first off, I am not the target audience of this book. This book is written for teenage girls and young women. That's exactly who this is written for. This is not written for a 34-year-old man. My first gut impression after finishing this book, spoilers by the way, it's okay. I don't actually have, when I put this book down at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? I didn't think that was horrible. I have read much worse than this. Shoot me a message sometime. I will give you the names of a couple of books that you will go screaming to the authors like, what the hell are you writing? Or just things that are poorly edited, or just make no freaking sense. There are so many books that I hate way worse, that I could give so much worse criticism than this one. That being said, I get the criticisms. I totally understand where people have issue with the relationship of Bella and Edward. I do see where people see the problems. I totally get where people see this as abusive, as a form of abusive relationship. There's been like psychiatrists who've like dissected everything that's going on. Like, yeah, this is kind of an abusive relationship, and people think it's bad for girls because they should want a guy who's like this, and this sets up the impression that this is okay. I am going to knock all of that out of the water right now. Edward is a vampire. That is my exact counter, my complete and utter counter to all of that criticism. I believe there is a different dynamic going on here because Edward Cullen is a vampire. It is very clearly explained in this book what he is emotionally going through in his mind. I think to the credit of his character, how he is written, I completely understand Edward's problem. I do. So let's kind of start off with the book proper and get the idea. Bella has moved to Forks, Oregon? Forks, Wisconsin? Forks, a city called Forks. I want to say Oregon, that's not right. Montana? Forks. She's moving to Forks. She's a new girl in town. She starts quickly making friends. And this one guy named Edward, who seems to sit alone with all these all apparently his family, who all look the same, this ashen white skin. And Edward seems to treat her very mean at first. And what we find out later is that Edward is attracted to Bella's scent. He's very attracted in a very overly exertive way to Bella's scent. But as we discover in the story, Edward and his coven of vampires, they don't hunt humans. They hunt animals, and jokingly call themselves vegetarian vampires. That they don't hunt humans because they think it's inhumane to do that. That's inhumane to give in to those lustful instincts and stuff. Bella is attracted to Edward. She is genuinely attracted to Edward, and throughout the story, I would have to say some very slow exposition, actually explaining it very clearly, Edward's plight becomes... We learn everything about Edward and what's going on and why he acts the way he does. For example, the first time he's with Bella, he's like, in the biology class, he's like clutching his table and like almost like in rage, and something's wrong. He's actually holding himself back from attacking Bella because the scent that she's exhuming, he has heightened sense of smell and stuff because he's a vampire. It's overpowering him. And we also learn that Edward, and this is something that was narratively written for the story, Edward cannot, unlike most of the people that he can read, he has like a sense of empathy. because of like a magical thing that happened when he was turned. Same with all the other vampires in the coven. He can, or with other similar powers in the other members of the coven, he can sense other people's thoughts. He can't do that with Bella, and that's purely the contrivance of the story. That's purely story contrivance. But what's driving him nuts is he's trying to figure out what she's thinking, and he can't. And so that sets up the idea, the setup in the story, where Bella and him can build a relationship and they talk to each other. And there's so much talking in this book. Now, I have not read a book. I have never read a story that talks about a couple building a relationship, which is exactly what is going on, basically going on in this first book. And it's charming. I have to admit, I was actually genuinely kind of charmed at how these two kind of work off each other and what happens, because one of the big things that happens before they really start to get together as a couple, Edward saves her life. A truck is skidding out of control, is going to run over her. Edward, using his vampire powers, he dashes forward. He stops the entire car cold with his body because he's so freaking strong as a vampire, though he hasn't revealed this. He stops it cold. And Bella suffers only a minor injury. But they then start talking and stuff, and he reveals basically what he... I don't think he explicitly explains it, but Bella... It's actually really nice. Bella is given the impression from Jacob, we meet Jacob, like the Night Walkers or something, or the Dark people. I can't remember what he calls them, their Indian clan. But they call them... Oh, excuse me, Native American clan. Oh, why the fuck do I care to be... Why the fuck in this review am I giving a damn whether or not I say Indian or Native American? Does it really matter when you're dealing with vampires? But we learned that they call them something very specific, and those pretty much work to get out this guy has to be a vampire. She looks it up. It's not like she doesn't act stupid. She actually looks up what vampires are, thinking it's kind of silly. She's a grown woman. How could she possibly believe this? But in fact, it's true. He's a vampire. And they start to have conversations together, and it turns out his family's kind of okay with him seeing a girl... Seeing a human girl, and he meets the rest of his family. And the vampire lore in the book, how they deal with it. Edward very cheekishly chides off the idea that wait a minute, if you're a vampire, shouldn't you be burning in the sun? He's like, sunlight doesn't hurt me. Like, I think he says, the sun doesn't hurt me, but the sunlight does something weird to me. I forget the order he says it in. Because they go to like this very secluded meadow, and he goes out into the sun in the middle of the meadow, and his skin sparkles. It literally sparkles. And I've heard so many girls say, "Oh, it's Edward, and he sparkles." I thought they were being figurative. I didn't know they were being literal. I thought like, oh, the perfect man, he sparkles, like he does everything for me. I never knew that was literal. I never knew that, and if that was... I apologize to every single teenage girl who said that, and I honestly just thought you were being, like, idiotic and dumb. Like, no, you're being literal. So, to the subject of Bella, because a lot of... and I'm going to talk about Bella in the book, not Bella in the movies. Bella, she's a character cipher. She's Harry Potter. She's essentially... A teenage girl is supposed to put herself in Bella's shoes. That's exactly what's going on. It is the ideal teenage relationship. That this guy will do freaking anything for you. He doesn't want to turn you to a vampire because he loves you. And she loves him. There's a really... The back... one sec, let me read the back piece of this, because it was a nice line. I think she said... Oh yeah, she's like lying in her bed, and like she spent the day with him and went home, but she realizes he's a vampire, and like, what does this mean? This is from the back jacket, but it's also in the book. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how dominant that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. Aww. In the context of the story, it's actually a real... I find it really cute. I hate to say that, but I'm... You sucked me in, Stephanie. What can I say, Miss Meyer? You sucked me in. But no, Bella is a cipher for the audience. A teenager is supposed to just put herself in Bella's shoes, and that's where he's supposed to be. Edward, I think Edward is actually incredibly well developed. I gotta give Stephanie a lot of props for this. I don't know how long she worked on Twilight, developing the story and stuff, and this whole saga, but I felt Edward was actually incredibly well developed. I think we really understand where he's coming from. That he's almost not, he's 90 to 100 years old. I forget it was like 1910 or 1901 or something like that. He was born. He's like 90 or 100 years old, and he wants Bella to maintain her humanity because he regrets what he doesn't have, being a vampire. That this is what he is, and there's just certain things that they can be, and there's certain things they can't be. Yes, he got all these great things being a vampire, but he lost a lot of things, and like, it's interesting. I can't think of like all the specific things right now. But I really feel like they really explore Edward very, very clearly, and I understand exactly where he's coming from. I don't think anything he does is creepy. It's that he's a vampire, and this is how he does this relationship with a human. I totally knock down all the critical arguments of abusive relationships or anything. I people, teenage girls are smart enough to realize that vampires aren't real. Okay, they're not. Okay, nobody put comments down there. Nobody put comments down there saying, "Oh, what if they really are vampires?" And you're teaching them this is okay. No, the vampire will probably just kill the girl. Okay, this is the fantasy. It's like Disney princesses. Okay, that's exactly what it is. This is not gonna harm any teenage girl reading this. I think it's just supposed to be that fantasy of the perfect man, and everything just goes the way you want. Maybe. We do meet his vampire family, his coven. I don't think he calls it his coven, but it's just his family and stuff, and the people who took him in and their various powers, and kind of their explanation of how they came into vampiredom and what happened to them. The ending plot of this book, I have to give a lot of... Oh, wait, before I get there, Jacob does appear in this book, but he's actually really not that well developed. I know what he becomes later, but he doesn't really actually do that much in this book. He's just kind of the grandson of the grandfather character. So he doesn't really do much in this book, and I know where it goes, but I was waiting for some kind of sign that was going to happen, but no. The ending cycle of this book is I guess just a rogue set of vampires who do hunt humans come to their baseball game. These vampires play baseball during an electrical storm because the sound of them moving about in the air and grabbing the ball and crashing into each other sounds like thunderbolts, so they won't be caught. But this trio of vampires who are traveling vampires who actually do hunt humans come, and they see Bella. And they're basically fixated on her. It's like this is a set of... And unfortunately, Edward kind of gives himself away by actually wanting to guard Bella to some degree. They think she's there as just a snack, and they're like, no, she's here for our protection. And it becomes very apparent to them that, like, oh shit, they want to kill Bella. And vampires are very quick and cunning and all this stuff. And so this huge subplot goes in where they're trying to keep Bella safe, and they're like hunting them out like through miles upon miles away. They're like using their scent and stuff trying to hunt this guy, and he ends up trapping Bella. I like the hostage situation thing, like, oh, I got your mom, and you need to come here or she'll die. And I'll say all these things so the vampires who are with you don't suspect anything. And just as she's like about to die, Jacob comes to her rescue. Like Jacob and all the other vampires come to her rescue, and he has to do a thing to suck the venom out of her wound, but not kill her, which has to be killing him because he doesn't want to turn her, even though her blood is that freaking close. Like, it's charming. I mean, I think a young girl could read into this. Like, that's really sweet. Like, he saved my life, but he still didn't turn me into a vampire, even though it would have been that freaking simple. And I found it charming. What can I say? I actually found it charming. There you go. It ends with them going to the prom, which she's like aghast at that she was never told that she was going to the prom, even though they're like all made up and stuff. And there's a scene at the end where she's like, I'm ready to be turned, but he's like, I can't take that away from you. It's like, oh, like it's so sappy. It's so sappy, but I'm so sucked in. I'm sorry. I'm sucked into it. I've never read either a romance or anything, or a vampire romance for that matter, or anything meant for teenage girls. This is my first time actually reading something in this category of writing. It's not a masterpiece. It's not. And part of that, because I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's perfect. I think there's a lot of stuff that is very much filler. Oh, I got dressed and went to school. Me and my friends went shopping. Like, maybe young girls find that interesting. I don't. There's literally a sequence of them trying on dresses and shoes. Is Sex and the City really that popular? You know what? I like it. Can you hate me? I like it. I like it. I actually went ahead and picked up New Moon. I am going to finish the rest of these books. I am charmed and interested to see where this goes. So that's my review of Twilight. This is Firewizard23. Take care and bye for now, everybody.